Is she sleeping? Is she passed out? Or is she already gone? Every time I look at this painting, something feels deeply off about it. This woman is literally drowning to death, yet she looks peaceful, even beautiful, like she's taking a luxurious flower bath instead of experiencing the violent, terrifying reality of drowning. This is John Everett Millais' Ophelia, arguably the most famous painting of a drowning woman in the art history. Painted in 1852, it now hangs in London's Tate Britain as one of their most popular attractions. People buy it on coffee mugs, posters, tote bags. But here's the thing that keeps bothering me. Why are we so obsessed with this beautiful image of a woman's death? And what's the real story behind this painting? I wonder if everyone would stop romanticizing it once they learn about it. This is another Ophelia, painted by German artist Friedrich Heyser around 1900. Same character, same scene, but a completely different feeling. Dark, unsettling, actually looking like someone who's dying rather than just taking a nap in some flowers. I've always been disgusted by how traditional art romanticizes and beautifies Ophelia's death. Her death in Shakespeare was cruel and unjust, a mentally ill young woman drowning while nobody even attempts to save her. Yet most artists paint her like she's some kind of water nymph on vacation. Today at Galleria, we're looking beneath the surface of these iconic paintings, not just to uncover how art has romanticized female suffering, but to tell the story of the real woman who nearly died to create this haunting image. Let's start with the most shocking part of this story. The woman who modeled from Millais' Ophelia painting actually almost died in the process. Elizabeth Siddal was just 19 when she posed for this painting. To get that floating effect, Millais had her lie in a bathtub full of water wearing a heavy antique dress. The water was supposed to be kept warm by oil lamps placed underneath the tub. One day, the lamps went out. The water turned ice cold. But Siddal, trained to be the perfect model, said absolutely nothing. She just kept posing, shivering violently, until Millais finally noticed something was wrong. She got seriously sick afterward, probably pneumonia. Her father was so angry he threatened to sue Millais, who ended up paying for her medical care. But the damage was done. Siddal developed chronic health problems that plagued her for the rest of her short life. Think about how messed up that is. To create this peaceful image of a fictional drowning, a real woman almost died of hypothermia. And that's just the beginning of the dark reality behind this beautiful painting. I'll admit it, this painting is a technical masterpiece. Even I can't help being drawn into it despite knowing the disturbing story behind it. Millais spent 5 months painting just the background, sitting outside by a river in Surrey, England. He painted every single leaf, reed, and flower directly from nature. The level of detail is insane, wondering that botanists can identify every plant species in the painting. That's why it looks so real, like a high-definition photograph. Look at how the water works. You can see both Ophelia's dress floating on the surface and the underwater plants beneath, the light hitting the water, the tiny ripples. It's all perfect. No wonder it stops people in their tracks. And then there's Ophelia herself. Her face is hauntingly beautiful, pale skin, red lips, those copper-red flowing locks. Her arms are outstretched like she's surrendering. Her lips are slightly parted, still singing as she drowns, just like Shakespeare described. The flowers around her aren't random either. Millais included the ones mentioned in Shakespeare's text: roses, daisies, crowflowers, nettles, and that willow branch hanging over the water. In Victorian times, these flowers all had symbolic meanings too. Poppies for death, daisies for innocence, violets for faithfulness. But here's the thing. In real life, these flowers wouldn't all bloom at the same time. This is a fantasy death, arranged like a perfect bouquet. It's a death made pretty for our consumption. And that's exactly what makes me uncomfortable about it. Now look at Heyser's version. This is the Ophelia painting nobody puts on coffee mugs. The water isn't crystal clear. It's dark, murky, threatening. There are no carefully arranged flowers spelling out symbolic meanings. Her face doesn't look peaceful. It's ambiguous, caught between consciousness and death. The stark white of her dress against the darkness feels ominous, not beautiful. This painting actually feels like someone drowning. It has weight to it, a psychological darkness that Millais' version carefully avoids. Why don't we celebrate this version as much? Probably because it doesn't give us the comfortable distance we want. It doesn't turn death into something pretty we can hang on our walls without feeling disturbed. It forces us to confront what drowning actually means, I think Heyser's version is actually much closer to what Shakespeare was describing. A genuine tragedy, not a pretty picture opportunity. Before we go further, let's remember who Ophelia actually was in Shakespeare's play, Hamlet. She wasn't some mythical water nymph. She was a young woman manipulated by the men in her life. Her father Polonius uses her as bait to spy on Hamlet. Hamlet himself, in his revenge obsession, cruelly manipulates and rejects her. When Hamlet accidentally kills her father, the combined grief and betrayal drives her insane. Shakespeare doesn't even show her death on stage. We learn about it secondhand through Queen Gertrude's speech. She describes Ophelia gathering flowers by a brook, falling in when a branch breaks, and then floating while singing fragments of old songs, seemingly unaware she's drowning until her water-soaked clothes pull her under. It's a heartbreaking scene of mental illness and neglect. Not romantic, not beautiful, tragic. And what's especially disturbing is how Ophelia's real-life model ended up mirroring this fictional tragedy in ways that are almost too eerie to be coincidence. After posing for Ophelia, Elizabeth Siddal's life took a dark turn that paralleled the character she portrayed in unsettling ways. She became the muse and model for Pre-Raphaelite artist Dante Gabriel Rossetti. He was obsessed with her look, especially that copper-red hair, painting her constantly. But he strung her along for almost 10 years before finally marrying her, all while having numerous affairs with other models. The bathtub incident had damaged her health, and she became dependent on laudanum, an opiate medication, to manage chronic pain. But Siddal wasn't just a victim. She was also a talented artist and poet in her own right, creating haunting watercolors and poetry that explored themes of death and betrayal. In 1861, Siddal gave birth to a stillborn daughter, plunging her into deep depression. Rossetti finally married her, but by then, she was physically and emotionally broken. In February 1862, she was found unconscious from a laudanum overdose. She died that night, aged just 32. Whether it was suicide or an accidental overdose remains debated, but what happened next is almost too ghoulish to believe. When Siddal died, Rossetti made a grand romantic gesture. He placed his only manuscript of unpublished poems in her coffin, tucking them next to her cheek and tangling them in her famous copper hair. But 7 years later, he changed his mind. He wanted those poems back. So on a foggy October night in 1869, Rossetti had his agent supervise the exhumation of Siddal's body at London's Highgate Cemetery. They dug up her coffin, opened it, and retrieved the manuscript, which Rossetti later published to great acclaim. According to accounts, when they opened the coffin, Siddal's body was remarkably preserved, her copper hair having continued to grow in death, filling the entire coffin with glorious red waves. I think it's also crucial to confront what Elizabeth Siddal endured in life, especially at the hands of Rossetti. He was unfaithful throughout their relationship, and many believe that the pain he caused contributed directly to her laudanum overdose. And even after her death, the exploitation didn't end. Burying his only manuscript with her might have seemed poetic, but exhuming her body 7 years later to retrieve it? That wasn't devotion. It was self-serving. Rossetti used Siddal's image, her suffering, and eventually her grave for his art and ambition. Like so many women in art history, she was never allowed to be fully human. Just a symbol, a muse, a canvas for someone else's masterpiece. Ophelia's drowning isn't just in these two paintings. Artists have painted this scene over 50 times throughout art history. She's one of the most frequently depicted literary characters in Western art. But why? Why this obsession with painting a young woman's suicide over and over? And why do most artists choose to make it beautiful rather than tragic? There's a disturbing pattern throughout art history. Dead and dying women are consistently portrayed as objects of beauty. Think of all those paintings of female martyrs dying in ecstasy, or sleeping beauties in death-like slumber, or consumption victims with their beautiful pallor. Art critic Loreday suggests that these Ophelia paintings create a twisted mirror of baptism, forever immortalizing her sexuality, while simultaneously punishing her for being an object of lust. As viewers, we become part of the spectacle of female punishment. This isn't just ancient history either. Look at modern crime shows that open with artfully arranged female corpses, or movies that linger lovingly on beautiful women as they die. The beautiful dead girl is still our culture's favorite entertainment. The message is disturbing. Women are most beautiful, most perfect when they're suffering or dead, when they've surrendered all agency and become pure image. It's the ultimate form of objectification. So next time you see Millais Ophelia floating serenely among her flowers, remember what you're actually looking at. A painting where a real woman nearly died during its creation. A complete fantasy of what drowning actually looks like. A culture's disturbing fixation on beautiful female suffering, and Heyser's darker vision. It may be less famous, less pretty, but in many ways it's more honest, showing death as the terrifying, tragic event it actually is, not some romantic fantasy. Art has incredible power to reveal truths, but also to conceal them behind beauty. The most captivating images often mask the most disturbing realities. Sometimes we need to stop admiring the beauty long enough to confront what lies beneath the surface. Like Ophelia herself, these paintings float between truth and deception, reality and fantasy, revealing as much about our culture's attitudes toward women as they do about the artistic brilliance of their creators. If you found this exploration of art's darker side fascinating, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel reach more art lovers. Subscribe to Galleria for more deep dives that look beyond the surface beauty of famous artworks to uncover the complex stories they hide. And if you know someone who'd appreciate this different perspective on art history, sharing is the best way to support the channel. It's completely free for you, and helps me continue making these videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.